Welcome to Plot Twist Radio, the show where creativity, storytelling, and the unpredictable path of the creative life all collide. I'm your host, Erin Egnatz. Welcome back to Plot Twist Radio, the show where stories take unexpected turns and the people behind them reveal twists you never saw coming. Today's guest brings a fascinating blend of real-world experience and dark imagination to the page. A veteran, former law enforcement trainee, and lifelong storyteller, he channels his background into gripping crime and mystery novels that dive deep into the psychology of both investigators and killers. In this episode, we explore what happens when true crime meets fiction, how cold cases inspire storytelling, why the why behind a crime can be more compelling than the act itself, and how far is too far when it comes to true crime podcasts influencing real investigations. We also get into his unique writing process, one where even he doesn't know who the killer is until the very end, and how the unpredictability keeps readers on edge. So if you love psychological thrillers, true crime, and stories that blur the line between fiction and reality, you're in the right place. Hello and welcome to the show. Before we get started, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
My name is Sallee. I am a veteran of the Iraq War. I served 2 tours over there. I served 7 years in the Army. I live in South Carolina with my wife and 2 dogs, and I have 4 stepchildren and 8 grandchildren.
Wow. Wow. Thank you for your service, by the way.
Thank you for your support.
So let's start at the beginning. What first made you want to write crime and mystery stories specifically?
Well, I have a background with, law enforcement. After I graduated high school, I started a junior college. I ended up dropping out, but I was taking sheriff's reserve classes. So I qualified at the firing range. I learned police procedure and stuff like that. I went on several ride-alongs to help enrich my knowledge of it. And I love thrillers. I love cop shows. I love all that type of stuff.
I do too. I'm addicted to the ID channel. I think it freaks my husband out a little bit, to be honest. But I could sit there and watch it all day, especially back in the day with I think it was Lieutenant Joe Kenda or something. I was just
Uh-huh.
addicted to that show. I had to know what happened next. So true crime is one of my favorite genres.
Joe Kenda, that show took place in Colorado Springs, and I lived there.
Really?
Yeah.
It seemed like there was a lot of crime happening, but maybe that's just the show.
Well, up in Denver, Colorado, I heard that Kelsey Grammer had his sister kidnapped and murdered up there. He used to
Really?
come once a year to, make sure the guys didn't get parole.
Wow. I did hear something about his sister, but I didn't know it was in that area. Such a sad story.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
did storytelling feel like does it feel like an escape to you when you're writing?
yes, I started writing in high school, and one weekend is a long weekend, I got bored, so I decided I'm gonna write a children's story, and I wrote a children's book, and don't know what happened to it, I don't have it no more, nothing published, nothing like that, but it helped ignite yeah, I love storytelling, and when I wrote essays down in, English class in high school too. I fell in love with writing then, and then fell away from it throughout my life, did several different jobs. I was a truck driver, worked in construction, I went into the army and stuff like that. And, then after it was all over with, I drove for a couple of years after the army, drove truck for a couple of years after the army, and then I got diagnosed with cellular bronchiolitis of the lungs, and I got put on 100% disability for that. And so I decided I wanted to write a story again. So I went to my uncle with 3 story ideas and told him I said, "I wanna write about one of these topics." One of them was about a podcaster, and he said, "Write about the podcaster that's big right now." So I said, "Okay." So I started writing a story, and it turned into my first novel.
Interesting. Very interesting. So, the book to me it feels very modern. True crime podcasts are everywhere right now.
Yeah.
Um Is it what kinda put you in that direction for the podcast, like you were starting to say?
Just I come up with these ideas in my head, "I wanna write about this, I wanna write about this." Um, and it may take me years to get around to that subject, but I always keep the storyline in the back of my head. And it's just one of the storylines that was in the back of my head to write about one day. And so I eventually did.
Cool. Very cool. So, in the writing process, what came first? Was it the podcast character or was it the murders and then you kind of filled in the rest?
The podcast character came first. I had the idea of the podcast character, and then I just started writing. And honestly, I wrote by the seat of my pants. I didn't plan it out. I didn't outline it, nothing like that. Like today, I'm a little bit more organized about how I write. I have a whiteboard and outline everything and all that stuff. But back then, I wrote this book in about 6 months, and then I took 5 years to perfect it. There's a saying, they said, when, you write your first book, write 10 more books and you get the 10th one published, or you can write the first book 10 times and get the first book published. I wrote
That's
this book 10 times,
Yeah, that's how
approximately.
I was too with my first book. It started as something completely different from what it ended up being. And I was like you, I did not outline. I still don't outline. I need to outline. I just can't do it. I just can't do it. Every time I try, I deviate so far off of what I have on the outline that it just, I don't know. I need to become more professional, I think, in that sense.
Well, what I do is when I do the outline, I make the outline fluid, so if I start going in a different direction, I change my outline to fit the direction I wanna take it in. But it makes it easier having the outline first because you know what you're gonna write about ahead of time, and you just write a chapter about this particular subject, and f at least for me, it is. And, when, uh when I outline, it's like I'll have an outline down, and I'm like, "I don't need that, cross that off. Let's move this over here. Let's do this here." And I change it all around.
For sure. So we'll move on to the next one. Cold cases have a different emotional weight than
Mhm.
active crimes. Why did you choose that angle?
Um, because I wanted to bring something I wanted to bring it to where he's bringing light to something new, bringing something new to something old, that type of thing, where he's, solving something that couldn't be solved.
Mhm.
So and in this case of this book, he ends up working with the police and stuff, which helps them solve the case.
Yeah. So his kind of obsession with the case, do you think that that obsession is necessary for investigators?
I think so, yes, because they need to be invested in what they're doing, and they need to care about the ending.
Right.
I truly believe that they need to find the story behind the thing, behind the crime. Why did they commit this reason, and have the why as much as the motive. So, and
Absolutely.
with this one, he's invested in it mainly because the killer's trying to kill him now. So,
That would probably make me pretty invested too. I think that would light the spark there. Your stories, they focus on the dark side of human nature.
yeah.
What fascinates you about criminal psychology?
The why people do the things they do to each other. Why would what would motivate you to actually commit these crimes? And I actually just finished a book. It's not gonna come out for a couple of years, but I just finished a book about a serial killer that's, it's from his point of view and how he views everything and how he looks at it as killing somebody that's his possession, that's his, instead of that's another person that's actually his.
Gotcha. So when you write a suspect list, do you know who the killer is immediately, or do you discover that as you're writing?
I discovered it with this one, I discovered it as I was writing. With my next book that comes out in a few months, probably May, June timeframe, I discovered it as I was writing.
So how do you make readers suspect everyone without cheating the mystery of it?
I surprised myself with who becomes the killer. You don't find out who the killer is until I find out who the killer is, and I don't find out who the killer is till the end of the book.
That's an interesting way to do it. It's a smart way to do it too.
So, and everybody I've talked to, they read a few chapters, they're like, "I know who did it." like, "No, you don't," not because I didn't know who did it at that point.
That is a creative way to do it. I like that. I like that a lot. So, as a podcast host myself, I have to ask, do you think that true crime podcasts help justice or sometimes interfere with it? Because I live not far from where the Delphi murders happen.
Mhm.
And that was the first one where I really noticed that podcasters kind of took front and center of trying to speculate who did what. And some people said that they kind of got in the way. I don't think they did, but what is your opinion on that?
Well, it's, I touch on that in my, book about when is it justice and when is it just messing with somebody's life and dragging up old crimes and hurting the family again, re-traumatizing the family. And that I kinda leave that open for people to interpret the way that they wanna interpret it. Is it just for entertainment or is it really helping the justice system? And I think there's a fine line on that deal. Some people can sensationalize. I think when you start to sensationalize the killer, like the Green River Killer, the Happy Face Killer, and stuff like that, and not the victims, that's when you're bordering on, I'm just want in it for entertainment.
Yes. And we see a lot of it actually, public obsession with killers, writing letters to them and kind of, turning them into like an anti hero. So that is a fine line that
Yeah.
podcasters especially need to walk.
Yes.
So, how do you build tension, so readers keep turning the page?
I I start writing, and if it doesn't make my heart flutter, then I know I'm not building tension. And if I get excited and I feel like I'm almost out of breath and all that stuff, I know I'm actually stirring something up. So, in my books, if I don't have something going on all the time, I don't feel like it's gonna be a page turner. I don't feel like there's gotta be some sort of tension, psychological, um, actual action going on, from the motorcycle blowing up to a gunshot off in the distance. Something.
Yeah.
And, you've gotta have something to make you gotta leave some sort of cliffhanger at the end of the chapter to make them think what's gonna happen next, rather than, "Okay, that was a nice story, I'm done with it now." So,
Gotcha. So, what's harder to you, plotting the mystery or writing characters that are believable?
well, I draw off of real life for the characters that are believable and what I see somebody would say and do. Um I've been applied for my character dynamics in the past, and I always put, like, some sort of love story involved. I'm a romantic at heart, so there's gotta be a love story in the whole storyline, and, I think I write characters easier than I write the plot points.
I feel the same way. That's how I am too. So, after writing about darkness, how do you step back into the normal life?
My wife, my dogs, my family. I know I scare my wife sometimes. I actually have the local coroner here on my phone as a number on my phone. And and some of those scenes I come up with scare my wife. She's like, "Are you sure you're okay?" "Yeah, I'm fine. Why?"
It's research.
I've got different ways to torture on my computer, stuff like that. If somebody actually didn't know what I did and actually just looked through my phone and my computer, they would probably have started a file on me.
Right. The government probably has one.
Yeah.
Probably me too, because I write dark fantasy. So some of the things I create, I'm just like, where did I even come up with this? Why did I say that? So, what do you want readers to feel when they close the book? Is it fear, relief, or something else?
I wanted them to question the reality of the story, honestly.
Yeah, that's a good one. So, what is up next for you? You told me that there's a book coming out soon, right?
Yes, it's called The Ghost in His Eyes. I'm in the process of having the cover made now. So the book's all written, it's ready to go, it's being formatted, and the cover's being, drawn up. It's about a, young man who just graduated the police academy in Atlanta, Georgia, and went on a hike before starting with the police department. And he went for a week-long hike that he used to do with his dad. and stumbles across a murder scene, goes to the nearest town and reports it, ends up being put on loan to the sheriff in that town to help solve the crime. Falls in love with the local diner owner, and there's a few little surprises in the story that might confuse you, but it all comes together at the end.
Very cool. I can't wait for that one because I'm originally from Atlanta, so
Oh, okay.
that would
Well, it
make
doesn't
me
have Atlanta in it. It does have Blue Ridge, the
oh,
town of Blue Ridge, but I wrote it as a fictional town. I had no idea there was a real town called Blue Ridge when I put it.
I didn't know that either. There you go, but that's pretty cool. So, where can the audience find you?
Amazon, my website at gasallee.com. The books for sale on there. You can find me on Barnes& and Noble online. You can find me at Walmart online. Um, and yeah, and I know of one bookstore that carries my books. I don't know if any others are yet.
Very cool. That's always fun to get into the bookstores. See your name there. I love that.
Yeah, I just found it last night. So,
Really?
yeah,
Well, congratulations on that. That's
thank you.
that's
It's
always a big deal.
it's at the Book Tavern in Augusta, Georgia.
Very good. Very good. Well, I look forward to reading your upcoming works and thank you for joining me.
I thank you for having me.
That was my conversation with Gregory. And I have to say, I love how his stories don't just focus on the crime itself, but the psychology behind it. One of the biggest takeaways for me from this episode is that fine line we talked about between telling a story that brings awareness and justice and one that risks becoming entertainment at the expense of real people. It's something that applies not just to writers, but to all of us who consume true crime content. And I also have to give him credit for that writing process, letting the story unfold without knowing the ending. That takes guts, and honestly, it might explain why his twists hit so hard. If you'd like to check out Gregory's work, you can find his books on Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, and his website. And keep an eye out for his upcoming release, The Ghost in His Eyes. It sounds like another layered, suspenseful ride. As always, thank you for spending part of your day with me. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to follow, rate, and share Plot Twist Radio. It truly helps more than you know. And until next time, keep reading, keep questioning, and keep chasing the twists.